What's going on, guys? Welcome to another live stream session with your boy Phrankleen. If you're watching this as a playback, thank you for stopping by. If this is your first time, welcome to Say It Like It Is with Phrankleen. Okay. If you can hear me, you can see me, do hit the like button. What's going on, people? Welcome to story time. All right. Don't forget to hit the like button. All right. So, as I say, if this is your first time or you've just bumped into this video for the first time, Story Time is a segment where people send me their stories to footchannel1960 at gmail.com. If you feel like sending me your stories, I deal with pretty eclectic, topics that we can hopefully learn from. So please, you can send it to footchannel1960 at gmail.com. Look in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. And yeah, if your story resonate with me, I would make you anonymous, and then I can turn it to a live stream session like this. Actually, hopefully from next week, I'm going to go back to pre-recorded contents that will be uploaded thrice a week at a fixed time of 3 o'clock UK time. Okay, so yeah, and then of course I would occasionally also do live streams. Okay, so anyways, you can hear me. You can see me. Thank you for stopping by. Let's crack on with. And if you're watching me, some of you always say, Phrankleen, I don't know when you're online. Or I don't get alert and stuff like that. I don't control YouTube, man. So many things go on with the algorithm or in the back end of the giant YouTube system or database or whatever you want to call it. So, but the only thing I can say is if you're subscribed, or if you haven't, smash the subscribe button. And if you're subscribed, hit that bell button and select the all option. So when you select the all option, basically notifies you when I'm on the live stream or when I upload a pre-recorded content. Even if you're busy, if you're at work or you're doing something else, you can always, at least you can always go back in your own time to watch the content. All right. So hope that helps. So yeah, Mbali, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, these stories about this brother, one of the people that watch numerous people that watch my videos, this was sent to me a few days ago. So he wants me to share his story. For those that have been watching me for a minute, I've had similar type content in the past, but these stories, unfortunately, are prevalent in the Black community, particularly in the diaspora community. All right. So, anyways, this brother story goes thus. Before I crack on, forgive me, okay? Forgive me. I just have to get some things out of my head and out of the way. If you want to support my channel, okay, you want to join my Patreon, because I know I don't say this enough. Sometimes I wait till the end of the stream. Sometimes I completely forget. You can see the details streaming at the bottom of the screen. My Patreon membership, why am I talking about this? It helps produce more content, bring you more interesting stuff. YouTube is a lot of work. So you can always support for as little as £3 a month. That's like what, £36 a year. That's the price of a cappuccino. So I've got other Patreon packages, but that's the bare minimum. All right. And if you want to do a one-off, my Cash App and my PayPal details are streaming at the bottom of the screen if you feel like. And if you don't, I still love you anyway. Okay. So let's crack on. So this brother left the motherland about 11 years ago, as most do, in search of greener pastures. He chose the United States of America, right? And please smash the like button. So from the story, I suspect that he must have left Africa for the United States with of course, the wrong, type of visa, right? And I kind of stress this enough. You don't even need Franklin to tell you. I'm just a content creator, but I do my very best to use, my platform to sort of like preach this particular gospel, right? Um, whilst I appreciate that people, for whatever reasons best known to them, they want to travel abroad, you want to go live your best life, improve your life, yada, yada, yada. I get that. When you turn blind eye to immigration complexities or immigration rules that are relevant to your country of choice, um, you're more than likely going to end up in the shadow of the system, and it's an uphill battle that will unfailingly demand or strip you, let me say, of a sizable chunk of your years, your life. Okay, time is the best gift, one prime gift that we've got as humans, right? So most of the time people bang on about, oh, because XYZ back home life wasn't palatable, isn't palatable, blah 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 blah. I get that. That's a common knowledge, everyone knows that. So like I say, you don't need Mr. Franklin to blabble through that, but for the purposes of this video I might touch on those things. You need to go, for example, I live here in the UK. Unfortunately I didn't, I read it a few days ago. I don't have it open now. I can't spend this time, right? Go and look at the data by the UK government, and they admit that they don't completely have, they don't have the complete data, but they sort of come with some figure of the number of people within the black community that are illegal in the UK. Your jaw would literally drop. And for the most part, if not virtually like all of them, most of them, live in the shadow of the system. And for example, now a lot of people might be getting their daily bread from whatever means they've been making their money. The pandemic came. Basically, the pandemic has absolutely eroded all of their jobs now, if not most of their jobs. And to make it worse, I mean, you live in the shadow of the system. You're not you know this. You're not entitled to, public funds or to get any type of governmental help. None. Somebody was telling me the other day. I'm just giving you this background. I'm going to go back to the brother's story. The story is not very lengthy, so I'm going to go to it in a moment. Just bear with me. I'm sort of building up to it. Somebody was telling me a few days ago about um, she knows a Nigerian couple, like a family, right? Husband and wife. They've got two children, but because they're both, illegal here in the UK, and they are basically, they said by the end of this week, they are going to be homeless. They live in a shared house, but because unfortunately, both of them, they've had their jobs completely eroded by the pandemic, right? The organizations that they were working for, even though I suspect that they've been working, unscrupulously, but that's not the point now. They've lost their means of income, and they've got two children, and it's just layers and layers of complexity. And this person was saying that they are already like 2 or so months in arrears with their landlord, and eviction is looming. So by the weekend, this forthcoming weekend, this family is going to end up on the pavement with nowhere to go. This is the harsh reality for so many. So there are some people with very myopic mindset. When they hear somebody like me talking about do it properly, they are very ignorant because they would think Franklin is asking them not to travel out. If you want to travel abroad, I'm just a pile of bones covered in flesh. I'm a mere mortal. I don't have the ability to stop you from going in whatever direction you want to take your life. But what I can do with my voice on my platform is to try to educate you and say, hey, if you feel like going to the US, good. If you want to come to the UK, do it properly. Because if you turn blind eye and you apply ignorance when you get into the system, because things are set in place, virtually everything is computerized. Everything, virtually everything is connected. In order for you to open a bank account in your name, you need, valid documentation, proof of address, and all those things. If you don't have it, it means you cannot walk into any high street banks to open a bank account. Um, if you want a well-paying job, even if it's minimum wage and stuff, you're gonna need your documentation, right? And if you come here with blind eyes, you are going to, you're basically just going to soon realize that, God damn, you can't go left, you cannot go right, you can't go forwards, you can't go backwards. And I've said it before, I'm not afraid to say it. If you look within our community, woo-wee, um, and you are hoping, fam, that maybe somebody would pull out a magic wand and mysteriously help you resolve your immigration complexity. No, they won't. Here and there, you find kind-hearted human beings, but what you've also got to realize is everyone, they have, even the people with permanent residence or who are citizens of the UK, everyone, they've got their truckload of responsibilities. They've got bills to pay, got children to take care of, they've got their cars, their mortgages, their rent. So it's going to be absolutely impossible for them to then offload their problems and just pick yours up, the entirety of it, or help you pay for lawyers. And so some of them don't even have that type of savings. You get the gist. So, anyways, now, this brother, he about 11 years ago went to the States and then, got into the system and soon realized that life in America is totally different from his perception of America outside the confines of America. Now, he said to me that when he got there was a relative that he went to DC, that when he landed in the States, he stayed in DC, Washington, DC, which was pretty expensive. But so there was like some kind of distant relative from his father's side that sort of accommodated him only for 2 months. So after about 62 days of staying with them, they basically gave him an ultimatum of finding somewhere else within a fortnight, or they're gonna have to kick him out and change the locks. So he struggled. A church took him in at first in DC, but then they said they couldn't carry on housing him after about another 5 months. He had to move from DC to was it Virginia or something, and then he went to Virginia. A friend of another friend, he got there, and then he got into a problem where he stayed. He was, somebody helped him. He was working in the car wash, trying to survive, had another job. And then the guy that owned the house he was staying in, it soon turned out that the guy had another underground type of business whereby the man was a pimp. He was pimping men, for sexual males particularly, and females, but mostly males according to the email, for sexual services. So they needed him to sort of tender, provide access to his rectum, which of course the brother wasn't willing, must have sent shockwaves through his body. So he wasn't going to let go of his rectum. And yeah, which of course didn't land, sit well with the person that accommodated him at the time, and he was flung out of the door because he wasn't prepared to, of course, willingly spread his butt cheeks. So he moved on from there, ran, left some of his clothing behind, and some of you are laughing, man. My choice of word, right? Choice of words. Of course, it's amusing, right? But this is harsh reality, though. It is. So he ran. I mean, thankfully, he managed to, you know, um, keep his butt cheeks firmly together, he legged it. So he said he then went to Texas, and there was some woman who then kind of like helped him stay somewhere. He was staying in the garage of the house, fam. The garage is where they would normally park cars, but the woman said she would stop parking cars in there. So she gave him like a temporary, like an electric heater, and then he would plug and then try to use some towels to block, air from getting into the garage. So he was sleeping in the garage. He slept in there. That was his home for quite some time, and he was paying $100 per week to sleep in the garage. He did say that the woman was nice in the sense that he was paying $100, but they would give him food as well. So, and he was allowed to use an extra bathroom, which was in the basement somewhere in the house and stuff. So, very rough life, man, very rough. In the name of living abroad. People. This is the reason I am sharing this is, sometimes when you are oblivious of things like this, we tend to become a bit cocky. Some of us tend to be ignorant. And some of you might even be like, "Oh, come on, man! That doesn't happen, man. Come on, man. That's ridiculous, man. That's exaggeration." Believe me, man. People go through hell. People go through hell. This is why I do my best in the best possible way. I'm sat in front of the camera and I try to articulate myself so that people, right? Yes, he was paying $100 per week in a garage. Yep, he was given a bed in there. That's where he said, because he said to me that he couldn't, perhaps living in fear, he couldn't go anywhere else to face, or he said a couple of times he nearly got caught by immigration, so he was afraid. He couldn't go anywhere else. He didn't have a stable. It was, I wasn't in the brother's shoes, but the woman was ha. The woman gave him a month free in the garage. So the second month, she started collecting $100 a week. So he was staying there, and then they would allow him access to the bathroom in the basement, and she would give him food and stuff, and he didn't complain. But he lived there. He eventually connected with some African American brothers that kind of like helped him in terms of some jobs. So he made friends with them. So these two African American brothers, I'm not going to name them, they helped him in Texas, and then he was able to get other jobs. So in a way, Phrankleen, what was he? Sorry, looking forward to? Was he waiting for a response to legalize his stay? What was his motivation? Good point, Yewande. I'm gonna have to pause and respond to that very quickly. See, what happens is, and I'm sure you know this, Yewande, when people land abroad, usually we have a totally different mindset. Like, oh, I'm going to land of milk and honey, right? So, especially when you travel with, say, the totally wrong type of visa, and then once you land in the palaver and the problem, and number one thing, due to shame, fear of reprisal, because you've waved everybody goodbye back home. Okay, so people just they accept their fate from that point, and there's always this thing at the back of the mind that I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. Now, how far your mental tenacity can go is a totally different conversation, because we're all wired differently, and depending on the circumstances, that you're faced or presented with. Do you get what I'm saying? So usually, people, just push through, hoping that they will find a way to get their papers. Hopefully, when I get my papers and regularize my stay, I'm gonna be all right. If I get my green card, I'll be all right. If I get my whatever, if it's here in the UK, I'll be all right. Hopefully, and then if you add a dose of religiosity, my whatever Jesus or whatever they believe in will make way for me. even if the reality is looking at you in the face in that regard. So, which is why people conveniently, not conveniently, easily, let me say, get trapped, in that vicious cycle. And can I also say this before I proceed with the brother's story? Do you know that somebody told me this, and it's true? Whilst a lot of people in the diaspora community are usually trapped in this type of situation, and some after many years, a decade or maybe less than or more, um, some might be blessed or lucky to get their papers, right? Do you know that we also have a high number in our community that span across several Black African nationalities that never make it to the end goal? They've lived abroad 10, 15, 20 years and they never get lucky. They never get that desired breakthrough to get papers. Some of them will unfortunately die in the system. Some of them, will just decide, pack their bags, and go back. Not every diasporan, you know, Franklin, even with the wrong visa, one can legalize their stay. Most Africans come with wrong visa. One is allowed to seek asylum on whatever grounds visitor's visa. Let me correct you very quickly. Let me correct you. Sarah, that's a lie. And you've got to be very careful how you put that kind of information. That's a lie. You see, the whole asylum thing, please, we're not talking about asylum, but I'm just going to talk about it very quickly. That's what this is about. Look, the whole asylum thing, right, has been thoroughly abused. Okay? The people behind the immigration system in the UK, in the US, they're not stupid. Forget that, Sarah. That's old news. You're totally wrong. All right? Don't even, if you have a relative, you have a friend, anyone, and you're thinking, oh, claim asylum, forget it. Canada, all these places, they know precisely what's going on. Don't even think about it, man. Let me tell you something very quickly. I like the point that you made. Sarah is my sister. We are all learning. Let me tell you very quickly. Let me just help you to understand how this works. So, if I'm back in Nigeria, check this out. Yeah. So I go to the U.S. Embassy. I apply to the U.S. Embassy, right, for a visitor's visa. Check this out. In the application, because I'm desperately trying to convince the consulars and the U.S. Embassy that my intentions are right, that I'm going to the States just to visit for a maximum of a month. And I've in my application, I hope you're listening to me, I have indicated that I run a mega poultry business back home. I have a capacity of 30,000 birds in my poultry. What runs concurrently with that, I have a piggery. I have this, I have that, I have a workforce of about 19 employees or whatever, right? I also have a snail business. I do this. So the long and short is they look at my papers and like, oh, this guy, I provide all my letterhead. I provide an elaborate bank statement of accounts to back up my application. I provide, properties, my assets, documents suggesting that I have landed properties and stuff like that. So what I'm effectively telling the consular is I am well grounded in Nigeria, right? So what that does is to convince them that, oh, this person is well grounded. Oh, wow, they have a well established poultry. This person is just wants to go to the US on holiday for a couple of weeks or 3 or 4 max, and they're going to go back to their business in the motherland, right? So let's say, for the purposes of this analysis, the consular is convinced, and I'm like, okay, good stuff. Boom, they give me the US visa, right? Let's say myself and my wife. And then they look at us like we're both directors of those businesses. We're just going on holiday. It's believable, it's plausible. They give us the US visa, right? We then land on the shores of the US. Actually, Our concealed plan is to cross over into Canada, right? We then pack our bags. We aim for the border between the US and Canada, right? We then get there, we put our hands up, and we say, "Oh, asylum! We're here to claim asylum. They're killing us in Nigeria. They're killing us in Lagos. My, 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 my. Pay attention, Sarah. Pay attention. Pay attention. I'm talking to you, right? Logically, all right? It's not, yes, you are allowed to claim asylum. I'm talking to you logically. I'm this and this and this, right? That's why they take fingerprints. That's why databases are well connected now. We have helped these people to open their inner eyes about our practices. So they're not stupid. So the Canadian people look into your background and then they realize, oh, hang on, you've only just landed on the soil of the US just barely 1 month ago. What's going on here? And then they go look at the database and then they realize that, this guy said he has a farm in Nigeria. He has 19 employees. He has a piggery business. He has this, he has that. He has landed properties. He has this. So do you think they're stupid? You think they're stupid? That's why, because you don't see this on YouTube, you should go and do your research. That's why a lot of our people, they've abused it. There are some that got away with it, but people have abused it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Oh, you just seek asylum. War-torn countries where like there's global war going on, people from war-torn countries, they stand a better chance of getting granted asylum if they file for asylum. You're coming from Nigeria. You're coming from the heart of Lagos. You want to go tell US authorities, Canadian authorities, that you're on the seek asylum? Now, there are extenuating circumstances. Let's say you are in Nigeria, you are gay, and there is like public evidence on the grounds that you're being attacked, that because you're gay, there is threat to your life, something went viral, and then you're seeking asylum on those grounds. It's not guaranteed, but in the UK, maybe in the US. Now, if you have a good lawyer, those type of grounds, of course, they more than likely might admit you, because it's threat to life and all that, you're running to safety. But just to think, yeah, I just tell them, oh, they're bombing us in Ikeja. What part of Ikeja? Do you understand that Canadian expatriates, US expatriates in their thousands, they live in Nigeria like like gods. They live across Africa. So if you're going to tell them that you're running from Lagos, you're running from Abuja due to a threat to your family, what part of Abuja are we talking about here? Where do you live in Abuja? The guy in the Canadian embassy can send somebody on ground to go and investigate. Everyone's got, all mobile phones and all this. So look, man, that's so 20 years, 10, 15, 20 years ago, man. Our people have abused all of these things. We have opened their eyes. Do you get what I'm saying? Thank you. There are right ways to get documentation. That's what you should be saying. All right. Let's not just be saying, oh, yeah, seek asylum. You know what I mean? Do it properly. Because what people forget that everything you write on paper, it goes in databases. Our people are very arrogant. They don't want to hear that. That's why when you apply about 10 years, 5 years ago, maybe to American embassy or Canadian embassy, and you've been rejected in the previous application, that's why they ask you, have you been previously refused? Some people think because it's 5 years ago, let me just lie to them. Have you previously applied? Have you been previously refused these applications? Have you made a previous application? You say no. They have it in the database. That's why when they're deporting people, What do you think they do? They take your fingerprints. There's a reason why. They share your fingerprints across borders to ensure that you don't sneak back in. The only way you can slip through the net is if the person in charge of that administrative duty completely forgot to take your fingerprints. They just slap you on the plane, they throw you back to the motherland, and then you find another way to, maybe you were deported from the UK and then you now find a way to sneak into the US. Maybe you might get through the net. But for the most part, they would take your fingerprint. So when they say you're banned from coming back for 10 years, they're not playing. It's not a joke, man. So all of these asylum is a lie. It's total lie, man. It's total lie. I want my people to find their way out if they want to find their way out. That's not the argument. Do it properly. Eunice, unfortunately, Nigerians don't use Google. Yo, gunshots. Yes, it's what's up, man? Yes, it's rough over here. Many individuals pay $1,000 or more for a basement apartment. Oh, you goddamn right. So anyway, this brother. So whilst he was struggling in the US, finding his feet and all that stuff, he had been sending a ton of money back home through his mom and dad, and they managed to convince him, Dad, I'll keep your money in my account for you. I'll be looking after it. You can use my savings account. Don't do that. Don't do that, man. If you're in the diaspora, you're working hard and you're keeping your money in your siblings' account or your mom's account or the dad's account, you're setting yourself up for massive failure. So anyway, the long and short was he was shelling money, back home, and he basically, click the like button. Come on, people, click the like button. Show your love, man. So he was, thank you, Gail. He was sending a ton of money back home, and then part of that was he had sent money, asked them to help him buy a couple of acres of land, because this guy, according to the email, was he had this mind that should he wake up one day and get absolutely unlucky, get under the negative spotlight of the US immigration, ICE, um, um, even if they get him removed, so that if he has to go back home, he will have a few things in place that he can fall back upon. Is that a bad idea? Definitely not. So he had paid for, he said to me, 3 acres of land that they kept somewhere in the outskirts of town that he was contemplating that he might fall back upon for farming, right? So he said at the time, the dad and his two of his siblings, younger brothers, who were all on his payroll whilst this brother was suffering in the US. They had done all the documentation, the, what do you call it, man? The survey plan, the CFO, and all that stuff, right? And he said they sent it to him via DHL in the States, because he said he asked them to send him the original copies. So this guy has basically kept all of his documents. He believed that he had 3 acres of land, back home that he can fall back upon when needed to do farming and all that stuff, right? Now, he then, as things got slightly better, was still challenging. It was, you can imagine all the years chasing papers. He then was remitting money back home, bulk of his money back home to his brother, his dad, and two siblings to help him build a house. So he said at first there was a lot of back and forth in terms of the building materials and stuff. They connived. He would get in a lot of argument. And like I always say, emotional blackmail. As soon as he raises his voice at the dad, he gets shouted at and he would get told that he was going to get cursed. And And because he didn't want to get cursed, he would lower his voice whilst he was busy in the background smashing his own head against the wall. So the long and short was they took monetary advantage over the years. Now, now he built, or we call it a four flat back in Nigeria. Okay, basically it's a one-story building with four apartments, one on the ground, two on the ground level, one here, and then the next floor, one here, one here. So it's basically four apartments. Yeah, some call it four flats. So he built that with the mind of he will rent that out, and then the yearly sort of revenue from the what do you call, man, from the rent, yearly rent, he can put that in the account. And all of these things are wonderful ideas. The fundamental problem is just execution. Right now, the house was built. He said he believed that he had spent more than enough to even build all of that. So once the project was completed, he then gave a go ahead and say, can you um, please help me find tenants? So the first argument was the father then said, oh, your so brother, let him move. He's struggling, as you know. Let him move into one of the flats. So you got three vacant flats. That should be okay for you to rent out. So he got in a heated argument with his pops. Said, "No, you're not going to dictate who moves into my house. I don't want my brother moving in." And then it was an argument. He said the father hung up on him. He tried to ring back. The dad was no longer picking up the call. The argument, the bone of contention is they called him selfish. They called him every name in the book. This is a guy who has suffered a lot in the States, and he has done everything he could possibly do to support them monetarily and all that. So the dad said he wanted one of the siblings to move with his own wife and children into one of the ground floor apartments. And this guy was, all he could do was on the phone yelling and all that stuff. They had colluded with other family members. So anybody else that this guy tries to call, they were talking him into submission. There's nothing wrong in helping your this and this. It's a four flats. Help your sibling with one of the apartments. At least you still got three. You're still the owner of the house. So because he was not backing down, they then refused to help him find like tenants into the rest of the apartments and all that. Then the whole thing, he asked them to lock the house up, blah 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 blah, and keep the keys and all that. They carried on making threats. Then mysteriously, about 3 months into the whole thing, mysteriously out of the blues, he got a bad news that, so there's some government officials had come to the property, and the local government officials, they had been in touch with his dad and brothers. They're basically saying there was a mark of government acquisition on his piece of land. So meaning that he had bought a piece of land that officially belonged to the government. So imagine you're in the States, you haven't got documentation to fly, to go and rectify this, to go and verify or do anything. So he was arguing back and forth. They got some randomly selected guy who posed as a government official in the background. They were yelling, they were very rude. They were telling him that, they've just checked. The people that sold him the land shouldn't have sold him the land because the land belonged to the government, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. I mean, I must say that, of course, if you really and truly buy a parcel of land, that's why when you want to buy a land, it's very important that you do your checks, your verifications properly, Because yes, really and truly, if you buy a piece of land or parcel of land, and if they do the survey and it falls in the jurisdiction where there is already a mark that the land belongs to the government, you cannot win the legal battle, even if you get the best of lawyers and you go to court, because the government will win straight. The land belongs to the government. That's it. So it's better not to hand your money to unscrupulous persons that will raise your hopes that, oh, you're buying a land in your area of choice, and meanwhile they're selling you a land that perhaps wasn't meant to be for sale. You get the gist, right? So they said that the house had been marked, has been, had been demolished, blah blah blah. So now check this out, right? The guy, because he had no understanding, and you cannot blame him, he didn't know much about, all of these government acquisition. That's what I always say. Sometimes it's when you find yourself neck deep in all these troubles, you start running from pillar to post, and you haven't got a clue. So you can see where this is going, right? So usually, if a land genuinely belongs to the government, and the government was going to take it back off you, they don't owe you any compensation. So there are two things I need to clarify here. If you buy, whether knowingly or unknowingly, unscrupulously, whatever you want to call it, you buy a parcel of land that genuinely being the objective word, belongs to the government. If the government snatches the land back from you, they don't owe you a penny in terms of compensation. Nobody cares if you've spent 100 million building on it. Do you get what I'm saying? But if you genuinely own a parcel of land, and let's say the government then decides tomorrow, your land is not government acquisition. You're not encroaching on the government's land. You own it, and everything is legitimately yours, rightfully yours. Yeah. So the government tomorrow decides to build a rail track or a brand new dual carriageway, and then it happens that the dual carriageway falls within the jurisdiction of your land, and the setback of the land or the rail track, the rail project will cut into your land and set into your land. The government by law must compensate you, because why? They will be eating into your land, they'll be cutting into your land. The land belongs to you, so they must. And then that's what they tend to do, is they quantify what's on the land. If it's going to damage an already standing structure, it might run into millions. If it's just going to take a bite of your land, maybe like a plot because of the setback or whatnot, you will be compensated adequately, right? So two separate things there. So anyway, they then told his brother that, oh, the government, the people that said the government wants to take the land, they said, oh, we will help you. We will help you. You're not going to get all of the money because it's the government's land. You bought it mistakenly, blah, 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 blah. They scanned in bogus documents via email. So you can imagine the devastation of this brother. He spent millions building on this land. So they said, oh, they will help him with some sort of compensation. Now, don't forget, at the back end of all of this is dad and two siblings, three of them. There's so much pressure. Everybody's got opinion. He's miles away abroad. He's unable to travel home. He's unable to verify. He's got limited knowledge. There's no one else to call. Now, they then said, don't worry, we'll help you fight for compensation. And because the guy doesn't have his own bank account back home, whatever it is that we want to pay, the government wants to pay you, will pay you to your dad. And the dad can pass the money to you. He had no choice. So the long and short was, this guy's dad and the brothers, they basically colluded with some cowboys and they stole the property off him. They sold it under the fraudulent suggestion that the land belongs to the government. It's a lie. They sold it with the complete structure, and then the dad said, oh, the government gave, just as a gesture of goodwill, these X amount of money, which is in fact a lie. So what they did was, They had gotten him to commit to some things through telephone call, which they unscrupulously recorded. He didn't know. He agreed. Yes, yes, signed the document. Yes, yes, yes. They recorded everything to cover their tracks. This guy had no clue. He sold. They sold the property. Then the dad said, "Oh, this is the X amount of money that those men paid into my account. Just gesture of goodwill because you've built a house on the this and this." Of course, it's like you spending, God knows, 20 million naira to build a house, and then they say to you, "Oh, they gave you a million naira or 500,000 naira, right?" Which doesn't even compare. So now, fast forward, they've marked all of this money, this guy's money. They've done all sorts. So now, fast forward, a couple of years later, makes it year 11. Dude gets his green card. He gets his green card, and at that time, the relationship was already strained. Trust has gone out of the window. He was devastated. He's lost a lot of money. He hadn't recovered. So he got green card in the States, thankfully, without having to provide access to his rectum, like I said earlier. So he traveled back home unannounced. And then he stayed somewhere with an old friend. And he made a quiet visit to the location of the house that got sold a few years back. And then when he got there, he found the house is there intact. There are people living in there. There are cars parked in the premises. So this guy was being curious, knocks on the gate with his friend, and then the owner came out, and the no, the owner's son, the owner was actually out of the country, and so, "Hello, how can I help you?" And then he, I just want to find out, did you buy this from the government? So at first they were like, "Who are you?" and all that, so they wanted to kick him out. So anyway, they calmed down, and long and short, covered the fact that the property was sold to them. So he got in the car, drove off, and then showed up. The family saw him, and yeah, all hell broke loose. And you can imagine the emotion boiling. Then he realized that. Remember, I told you he had a 3 acre of land. They had forged documents, and they already sold 1 acre. He had 2 acres left. Remember, I told you he had 3 acres of land. That was the first asset he acquired. They had falsified documents behind him. They had sold an acre unscrupulously to someone. So a friend, helped him, I think, through some persons. So the person they sold it to, fortunately, wasn't willing to get combative, and then they were willing to just back out of the mess. He was able to recoup the acre of land, which people that know this, usually gets messy. It can be life threatening if you want to face some of these dodgy people. And this brother broke down, man. There was death threats from his brothers. Even the father said. Then the father then accused him of, oh, because you put me to shame, your children will put you to shame. Some of these African parents, man, the audacity. He said he was like, "Oh, I will curse you. You will never amount to anything because you put me to shame. Even your children won't amount to anything in life." Blah blah. All of these in the heat of the moment because he uncovered the plethora of frauds, and because there was death threats and all of that to him. Some people advised him to, tread carefully and back away so they don't kill him off, man. It's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. And ha, I remember the two siblings from he didn't go to their houses, but from what he gathered from extended family members, both of them had built their own bungalows. It was off this guy's sweat. And at the same time, over the years, he was sending money to them monthly, supporting them, and all that. He was sending money. They took advantage. Those two brothers had built two bungalows off this guy's sweat. Now, the closing paragraph in this story was the brother told me that, I mean, clearly you can understand why. There's no surprises. He no longer has a relationship with his father and the two siblings. He cried, was angry. He's got a wife in the States now and all that. And by the way, if you're wondering if he has a mother is late. She died, years ago. So dad has a little, little young wife, young blood, who basically is also one of the driving forces and, enjoying daddy's old wine and old, of course, wrinkly sausage. They're all bound for hellfire. All of those very evil and selfish people. So there was repeated death threats and all that. So his friend, an old friend, and some other, based on advice, he backed out. And he just left it. He's picking up the pieces according to his choice of words. He's picking up the pieces of his life. He's not doing bad with the support of his wife and all that. So he just wants me to share this story so that at least one person could learn from it. I wish somebody had woken that guy, and this is one thing. It's a double-edged sword, man. It's crazy. Some people would say, I always say, but look, man, he did say, there is one thing. There is always, when people show you what they are capable of the first time, believe them. This is what I want to say. I remember this because he said before he started shelling out huge amounts of money and all that, there was a time he tried his hands on, he bought a vehicle and loaded things into it. Like when people buy cars abroad and you send it back home, some do it roll, or you put it in a container. All of this is just means to make money, which if done properly, if the execution is right, it can be lucrative if you make good money from it. But most of the time, us diasporas, challenge number one are the people on the other side. It's not, if all you want to do is send a bunch of a truckload of these cops because you managed to buy them for 10 cents in America, believe me, there is a huge market for this in Nigeria and across Africa. But if the boxes of these cops land in the hand of the wrong persons, then you fail. You lose money. You lose money, and then people say, "Oh, the business is a bad business." The business ideas or the businesses are usually not the problem. It's the execution. It's the people that you get involved with on the other side. You get. So, anyways, brother lost all of those. He said, "I'm picking up the pieces." He's still heartbroken, but he's living his best life with his wife, I believe. So for those of you, men, that are still governed by sentiment, or here's a story before you. I can sit here and give you billions of stories, and I mean billions, countless stories. People whose relatives have absolutely shattered their lives. It's not a bad thing, but I think it gets to a point in an adult's life. You've got to. I'm not asking you to criminalize people around you, but you've got to protect your resources. And one of the most dangerous things that can happen to us or anyone is, you see, there is one funny thing about life. If you take a ton of money and you put it in the hands of the wrong people, unscrupulous people, and they run your resources to the ground, right? You see, what tends to happen is you might not get the opportunity to recover. Some people might be blessed enough to pick up themselves like this brother and start to rebuild one step at a time, gradually, and hopefully get back on their feet and learn from it. Some people, they don't get the chance to recover all of the lost resources, inclusive of time and all that. So, and this can lead to sudden heart attack and suffering stroke and abruptly, losing your life, because it happens to the best of us, man. That's all I'm saying. So if you live in the West, yeah, I know, dire, you know, dire. I get what you're saying, and they have the nerve to talk about a black-owned business. I beg, miss me with that stuff, man. I know why you feel that way, and I can align with you. But I'm also a believer in we are the best resource that we've got. It's crazy though, but you just got to tread carefully. So many people's lives, resources have been snatched off them. Lives have been destroyed simply because they fell into the hands of very evil and unscrupulous, it could be parents, siblings, and stuff like that. Tread carefully is all I'm saying. Tread carefully. Tread very carefully. Some of you, you assume that because somebody is your mother, if you put 10 million naira in a hand, if you put $20,000 in a hand, oh, because she's your mother, she is not going to act unscrupulously. You are wrong. Oh, because this is your father, you take all your life savings in the UK and you blindly, with no control measures, you throw it at them. Why? Because he's your father. You're totally wrong. You set yourself up for one of the biggest shocks into your human body. Smash the like button. Come on, man. There's about 650 people online, man. Smash the like button. At least the only thing I can say is I'm happy that this brother is on a pathway of recovery. Some don't get the chance to recover. Some don't. Some don't. Some, the shock of that incident, the shock from that situation would actually have an adverse effect on their health and they die. Some become bedridden. Some become totally depressed, and it reflects badly on their maybe marriage or partner relationship with other people around them. It affects, they lose their job, and they just spiral out of control. Anyways, thank you for watching, man. Please smash the like button. That's me done. If you want to support Phrankleen, use the details streaming across the bottom of the screen. Send me your stories to fruitchannel1960@gmail.com. I appreciate you. I hope you've learned one or two things. Please send me your stories. It might not be your personal story. If it's something that we can all learn from, I do read everything, and then I'll make the best use of it, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll definitely catch you in the next.